Too many times I've heard of stories, and I picked up clients because of it, where somebody passes away, has a disability, and nobody is there who sold it. Nobody will help them. Here's the 1-800 number. And I really believe strongly, very strongly, that as good as you think your broker is, there's only one time that you're going to find out how good it is, but it's always going to be too late, is when there's a major claim.
Thank you for listening to the Interesting People You Meet podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Newground Financial. Newground Financial is a full-service investment and insurance brokerage firm that specializes in employee benefit plans, corporate insurance, and retirement planning. Newground Financial serves the provinces of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, Ontario, and Alberta. Find out more at newgroundfinancial.com. Thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting on the Interesting People You Meet podcast across all of your favorite listening platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. By doing so, you are ensuring that more great people just like you have the opportunity to hear from our guests. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Thank you for joining us on episode 23 of the Interesting People You Meet podcast, presented by Newground Financial. Here today with me is our co-host Nick Monburquette and also our guest Joel Cadesky. So Joel has more than 40 years of experience providing benefits and life insurance advice and is known across the industry for his professionalism, passion, and dedication to his valued clients. He actually started off his career teaching grades 7 and 8 before being drawn into the world of insurance, with his first role starting back in 1978 with Crown Life. Outside work, Joel has been an avid professional wrestling fan, as well as a passionate sports fan with a strong alliance to the Detroit Red Wings. He prides himself on a strong sense of family and community and is always happy to talk politics, wrestling, or insurance. He's also a newly done author. In 2020, he had his autobiography published, Retired, Rewired, Not Expired. Thanks for joining us, Joel.
You're very welcome. Look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, I know we just said a lot there, but you've had a lot of experience in the insurance industry, and I'm kind of curious to get a brief overview of why you got started in it and just maybe even a high-level view of your career in the insurance industry so far.
Yeah, very simple. It was a coincidence. My wife and I, we moved from St. Thomas, Ontario, which is outside of London. We moved about 120 miles to Toronto. And I was unemployed, and fortunately or unfortunately, I was able to get unemployment insurance, and we needed a house to live in, and we found a really good realtor who got us a house, and I used my unemployment insurance check to pay the mortgage. It was amortized over 40 years, so you can see how much interest I paid off. But the key was we got into the house, and 40 plus years later, we're still in the same house. But as any good person would do, you needed a insurance for the house. So I asked my sister-in-law, who was in the commercial, general, personal lines insurance, get me somebody that's really good. And she said, there's somebody down the street from you, which was coincidental. And I walked in and I told him my story. We got the insurance on the house. He asked me a little bit about what I do. I told him I was unemployed. He said, how would you like to sell life insurance? I said, does it pay? He said, yeah, if you're a hard worker and you really want to do it, yeah, it'll pay. So I said, all right, let's go. So the next day I was interviewed with Leo Fenson, who had the second largest agency in Canada for Crown Life. He interviewed me, put me through all the rigmarole tests that you had to do. And guess what? I passed, and he hired me. And that's 40 plus years later. I'm still here.
Cool. Well, tell us about the licensing process, because obviously, I'm fairly new to the industry, so in the last couple of years, I had to go through all my licensing requirements. And what was the difference back 40 years ago in terms of getting your license?
Yeah, it was an easy process, but for me, I just figured I analyzed it too much. So I failed the first test. So you really had 2 tests to do, and I failed the first one. And I came back, and my manager told me I was overthinking it. So I didn't think very hard on the second one and passed it. Then I went to the A&S one for disability, and I aced that one because that one I didn't think either. And that was it. And then when they went to level 2, which is now there, and all these other exams that you have to do, they grandfathered me. not because of my age, just because I had already got it and they let everybody have it. So I got a level 2, I guess, or whatever the equivalent is. And that's what I've done. And every year I get my required CE credits, and it's good. But I can tell you for sure, honestly, if I had to do it today, and I admire and respect people like yourself, I couldn't pass it. It is so convoluted, so complicated. I've seen these exams, the LLQ. It's really tough.
You think the questions have changed a lot?
Getting in. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. You think the questions have changed a lot, like the different landscape of what they're asking? Is it a lot different?
Yeah, I think more. They're doing more on financial planning, from what I hear, estate planning, taxation. I went to take my courses on the CLU, and after 4 courses, I stopped because I took the ones on group insurance, which I was really interested in. And once they got into taxation and that, I said, no, that's it. I'm out of here. I didn't go any further. So I have a C behind my name, but it isn't because of Cadesky.
Okay, gotcha.
I wrote my exam maybe 14 years ago, and it was 6 hours straight. The whole, like, all the modules, like, it was life and ASI, seg funds group, ethics, law. Yeah, that was, I had just got out of university, so I thought I'd ace it. Same thing.
Yeah.
And I think I failed the first one too, and I did it again a month later and passed. So.
Yeah, you're like me. I'm very, very, very good in writing, and I passed all my university exams well, got my BA, and then I went and got my supervisor's a phys ed degree and all that. So I figured this would be a piece of cake. I mean, you just study, which I did, and let's go. But didn't work out that way.
It was, and what I found more was, they're testing your testing ability more than the knowledge itself. I think I hung out too much in the knowledge myself and thought too much about it, like your colleague told you. And when you go in and take a deep breath and just answer that for, pick A and move on and don't change it, it seemed to work out for me. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's jump back. Let's go back to 1978. You just freshly passed your life insurance exam and you're ready to get started. I know I'd read in your book that your first sale was actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, was a gentleman that came out of an elevator that you had talked to him. So tell us a little bit about that, your first sale, and how'd you get started?
So I had no prospects. I don't know if you guys, when you started, if they gave you the 100 list and you had to come up with 100 names. I came up with 10. And they weren't even names, the next door neighbor, the guy that delivered my mail. Maybe I could ask him. So I had no prospects. I didn't know what a prospect was. So they just, my manager said, look, just get out, go somewhere, talk to people where there's a lot of people, and just ask them, would you like to talk to me about life insurance? So we have a large mall downtown in Toronto called the Eaton Centre, which is humongous. And I just went to the bottom of an escalator, and I just was looking for the right guy. And I saw this young guy come down, and I stopped him. And I was 33 at the time, so I was young at that time as well. And I just said, oh, by the way, my name's Joel Cadesky. Could I take a second of your time? How would you like to have $100,000 when you retire? And you said, sure. And I said, well, let's talk about it. Here's my card. Can we make an appointment? We did. And he came up to the office, and we actually made the sale. And the funny part is that I didn't even know what I was selling him. It was just funny. My manager just said, do this. Here's the line to use. Would you like to have $100,000 when you retire?
Interesting. Now, obviously, we know that prospecting is one of the bigger challenges in the insurance industry and keeping your pipeline full. But what are some other challenges you went through starting off your career other than lead generation and aside from all that?
Product knowledge was huge. Picking the right prospect. I was just taking people that looked like they were healthy and, and had some money, which really I struck out a lot. But the big one was the prospecting. No question about it. I just, my closing ratios were fairly good, I guess only because I think people felt sorry for me. I guess I came across as a guy that needed to make a sale. But when I got on something called the Welcome Wagon, which I believe is not around anymore, that was the key that got me open. I got so many prospects, and we didn't have all of the problems you have today. No call display, no internet for them to check me out, no Google, no this, no cell phone. And my closing ratio was about 100%, and my appointment ratio was about 80 to 90%. And it worked really, really well. So once I got onto that, then my career started really going.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about the welcome wagon. It was back a couple of years ago, I guess at this point, when somebody moved into a new neighborhood and they're just getting settled in there. The welcome wagon just showed up and said, this is your life insurance guy, this is your this guy, here's some coupons. So how'd that look like?
That's exactly correct. There was one lady that the welcome wagon got a list, I guess, from the city, a realty association, of everybody that moved. They got their name and phone number. And we were supposed to give them a present to welcome them. Well, what does the life insurance guy give? I gave nothing except a letter saying, welcome to the neighborhood, I'll call you, basically. And then I would be given the name a couple of weeks later after she had met with them. And I would phone them up and I'd say, Nick, Joel Cadesky, I understand Mary from the welcome wagon came to visit you. Of course, you got my gift. I'm glad that you received it. Oh, yeah, yes. Thank you very much. Never gave a gift, but they didn't care. And then I just say, look, I'm going to be on your street, the usual line that everybody uses. I'm going to be on your street next week, Tuesday and Thursday. Is 7 or 9 better for you? Which one? Make the appointment. Go there. I was selling mostly mortgage insurance because they're new homeowners. And then, of course, I got into a little better. But it was pretty good back then, and the sales were good. And they were really coming, and I was really doing well. And that really, to be honest with you, as I mentioned in my book, that saved my career. It wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here today.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that was a couple of years into the start of your career when that started getting going. So how did you survive in the first couple of years? Or what maybe I'll ask this. What did you do differently in the subsequent years that made you successful versus what the first couple of years had?
Well, the first couple of years was just scratching and doing what I could. And then once I started getting a base and starting making a little bit of money, I did get a draw in the first year. At the end of the year, my manager called me in and said, we paid you X and you gave us minus 6,000. So I was 6,000 in the hole going into my second year. And then, of course, I got onto the welcome wagon and the other things and started going. At the end of the second year, I got to actually pay that off, and I actually got a little check, not a large one, but at least it was a bonus check. And then from there, I think it was just confidence, seeing people branching out, getting into things. And then I got into group insurance. And that was my real big daytime activity. And I met a gentleman named David Young from Crown Life. And he really, really, really helped me out because he gave me the ins and outs of group insurance 101, 102, 103. That was my licensing in group insurance. And we got along so well. And then I had a good group rep for Crown Life, and he helped me make my first group sale, David Barber. And going from there, it was just loved group insurance and still do. It's my passion. Loved servicing people, loved going out. I love the hunt. I love the servicing, love taking away cases from brokers that should never have had it in the first place, and just going from there. So I think the group insurance plus the welcome wagon, really, that they just combined together for me in a comfort zone that I felt really good in. And I was really, really, really good on the welcome wagon. I had that, as you call it, spiel or talk or whatever, introduction down so well that I was getting like 80, 90% participation on getting appointments.
Nice. I know the prospecting looks a little different on the group life insurance side of things as opposed to just the individual life. So you don't really have a welcome wagon going around to these different businesses. How did you get started with gathering up?
This cold calling, going out in the cold. This hand froze more times than ever. I can actually tell you from experience, I'm the epitome of what a cold caller is, because there were so many days people would just let me in to warm up because they could see I was freezing because I was doing it in the cold of winter. And Crown Life had a great thing that you don't have today. They had this sheet, and on it, it had a rate. So if you were single and you're at this age, this is your price. So I had a really good thing. I just went around. I felt very, very comfortable going to small groups, cold calling. I had no problem. I'd walk in. I'd just ask for the manager, owner, whatever. And they would come out and I said, look, my name's Joel Cadesky. I gave them my card. I just want 20 seconds of your time. Do you have a group benefit plan? Yes or no? The answer is yes. I had a thing to talk about. If the answer is no, I always had the next question ready to go. Why not? Their answer was very straightforward. I'd say 90% of the time, we're too small. Because back then, small groups was really, really not something that insurance companies wanted to get into. Thankfully, Crown Life saw the value of small groups. So I would just say, look, if I could get you a price right now in the next 20 minutes, could we have a discussion on it? He said, sure. So I asked the names and birthdays, single or married. That's all I wanted. I came back about 20 minutes later. He gave me some place to write down. I say, okay, here's your price, $182.12, all in. And he would say, fine, what do I do now? Well, sir, it just happened. I have some forms here. If I have another 20 minutes, I'll meet with your other employees. We can fill out a form. You can give me a master application signed, give me a deposit check. I'll take it back to Crown Life, and the first of next month, we'll have this policy in place. And that's how I started selling. And boy, oh boy, people were receptive because nobody else was doing it. In 1975, July 7th, the Toronto Star business column, George Brett, called me beforehand and, of course, interviewed me. And he had heard that I was specializing in small groups, except his title was tiny groups. And he asked me all the questions. And he wrote a beautiful article on me as the quote-unquote expert since 1975. And I still have that particular column that I do show prospects to say, I've been doing this and written up as the expert in small groups your size since 75. Your current broker, could I see his article? Of course, there wasn't one. There isn't one. So I use that to this day, all these years later.
So you're still out on the hunt. You're still cold calling?
I don't go cold calling per se. I go referral calling. I get referrals and then I do my thing, which to me is like cold calling, except just warmer. So it's not cold calling, it's warm calling. But it's still, you got to call, you got to do, you got to meet, you got to know. You got to do everything you can because I think that the small group market where I am, I'm not saying in where you guys are or anywhere else, I think it's underserviced. And underserviced doesn't mean that they don't have plans. I just don't think that a lot of brokers out there are servicing properly. I'm a member of the CGIB, a proud member. There's 300 plus of us. We deal in group insurance on a regular daily basis. And I use that as well as a prospecting tool because I ask the client prospect, I don't want to know the name of your broker or the agent or whatever. Just go on cgib.ca, go find all the names, see if he's on there or she's on there. And if they're not, why would you not want to deal with somebody who's in the top 3% of Canadian group insurance advisors? So, yeah, I'm still on the hunt every single day, every day. I'm always looking, always wanting. I use a phrase that one of the people in the industry uses. I'm not at capacity yet. We still have lots of room for you if you want to join. So I tell clients, I'm never overworked. If you want to be a client of mine, I'll give you the same as everybody else. And I'm not at the point where I'm turning business away. In fact, in the years that I've been doing this, so many years, I've never turned a client away yet. I've got rid of some clients, but I've never had any prospects turned away. If they want to take me on, I'm appreciative, I'm humbled, and I'm just excited that I can do it.
Joel, I have a question for you. When you speak with these business owners, small business owners today, or their plan administrators who currently have plans, in my experience, typically they feel like they've got it all figured out because they have a plan. And my question to you, I guess, is what are some of the things that those business owners say to you? And I guess perhaps excuses as to why they think they shouldn't look over the fence right now.
Well, a lot of reasons. Number one is the one I get all the time is I've had no problems. And I say, fine. You mean to say that you've never, ever, ever had a claim turned down? You've never had a termination that was went awry? No, everything's great. The guy's been phenomenal. So I always ask the question, I don't want to know the name of the person, but could you tell me, is it a male or female? And they'll say, well, no, it's Manulife or it's Sun Life. And I'll say, no, that's the company that pays the claim. Who's the person you call when you have a problem? A lot of times on these small groups, Nick, they don't know the name of the person.
Yeah.
Second of all, you find out the relationship. Could I ask you how you started with this advisor on this plan? Is it a next door neighbor? Is it your brother? Is it whoever? And we find out in many cases, I find out that just was a cold call, or somebody just happened to make the right introduction by email and he was ready at the time, or he heard something on radio about group insurance, or the employees are putting pressure. So he just took the first offer. So that's how I go. But then it's real easy to get in there because there's a bunch of questions that I ask that just basically open up thoughts on the prospect and say, really, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I mean, one of the ones that I do is I have a sheet and it's called very, very succinctly, 13 reasons you should deal with Joel Cadesky. Notice I didn't make it 10. I didn't make it 15. I made it the unlucky number 13 because it's unlucky for the other broker when I finish. And what I do is I always say to the client, here's your sheet, here's my sheet, here's my 13 reasons. Every one of those that appeal or appear for your advisor now, check it off. And out of the 13, let's see how many you have. And if you can't get 12 or 13 of these, maybe you're dealing with the wrong person. I mean, the first one is I've had over 40 years experience. How long has your person been in business? 10 years, 3 years? No disrespect, Nathan, but I can, when you're not experienced, and I am, I can sort of go in there and use that as a negative. Same thing in term insurance or permanent. I've seen brokers say if you're with permanent, it's bad. If they have term, it's bad. Same thing. One of the things that I like to do and I put in there is I'm available. I call myself the 7-Eleven insurance advisor. I'm open 7 days a week, 7 in the morning to 11 at night. I take phone calls and emails from employees as well as clients. And I do get those phone calls. And in my book, I talk about some of those phone calls I got in the evening on Christmas Eve, whatever. And once you figure it out, and at the end, we go down right to the bottom. And I'll just say, okay, I got 13. Me. How many has your broker got? And sheepishly, they'll say 6, 7, maybe. And I'll just say, okay, your choice. Do you want to deal with somebody like me that's 13 out of 13? Or do you want to still deal with somebody who's half? It's your choice. I'm not changing the price. I'm not changing the plan. I'm just going to give you better service. So that's what I do when I'm out seeing people.
Cool. Well, you obviously started off with no experience at all jumping into the industry. You're starting from a grade 7 and 8 teacher. If you could jump back into the industry today with the knowledge you have now, what would you do differently than you did before? And at the same time, what advice would you give to people that are just starting out in 2023?
I think I would appreciate the value of a client more now that I've seen it and how hard it is to get, how easy it is to lose, and that kind of stuff. I think also I would tell people that you have to really service your client. You have to be up to date, get your C credits more. Instead of your 30, get 50, 60 credits. I think you need a mentor. I never got a mentor. And I know guys out there have mentors, Jim Ruda, Dan Sullivan, all those. I never had a mentor. My mentor was Joel Cadesky. I'm the hard knocks guy. I really am. I just learned it on the cuff, on the fly. A lot of training. Crown Life was not noted in the industry for training people. If you read my book, it says right in there, basically, here's how you read it. Take your exam, get out there, make some sales. If I had any advice today for young people and I had to go back, I would have joined another company like a London Life, even though I wouldn't sell for them, but I would take their training because, man, oh man, every person I've ever met in my 40 plus years, and they are top sales guys, a lot of them have been trained at London Life years ago. And you know what? It shows. So I think that would be, but I really think that you also have to appreciate what the clients were going through. When I was selling at the beginning, listen, I have no shame in it. I was hungry. I had a family. I needed money. And I was selling whatever Crown Life was offering or whatever the client. Today, I would have tell people, take your time, A lot of my sales, by the way, with the Crown Life Welcome Wagon was a one interview sale. I never do a one interview sale anymore. You have to know what the client wants. You have to know sort of what he has. And so I would just go in there and say, what's your mortgage? They would tell me, and I say, oh, here's my rate book. Oh, it's $12.50. Let's go. I got an application. Let's go. That's not really good. And I do apologize in my book, and I do apologize here. I don't think any of my clients from the beginning are listening, but I do apologize for how badly I did at the beginning, because when you look back at what I sold, if the superintendent of insurance ever saw what I sold, I would have had my license revoked, because it just wasn't what the client needed. Now that's the advice. So getting a mentor, getting a lot of training, selling what the client needs, not what you, the broker, needs. I think those are the three biggies that if I had to go back and do, I would have done.
Okay.
The mentor, believe it or not, of all of them, I think is the most important. I needed then, and I didn't have it, somebody to bounce my ideas off. And I think that's what a mentor does. You can bounce ideas and they can help you out and say, well, why are you doing this? Or I'm having trouble this week. I can't close this sale. What's going on? And they'll have fresh eyes to help you out. So I think that is really important. And there are so many good mentors out there that will help you out. And the fun part about it is I have in my career, and by the way, I've never accepted one penny. I've done it free because I think that I had to get back. I don't do that as a living, being a mentor, but I have mentored two people in my career, and both of them, I'm very proud to say they've been successful.
That's awesome.
I think they'll look back on it and say the same thing, that the advice I gave them has been helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, it definitely takes a lot to admit any wrongdoings or things that you wish you would have been able to improve upon. Now, I know obviously the insurance industry is probably so different than it used to be 40, 50 years ago, with the rules and regulations, with the reason why letters, with the client investor profile. So what are you seeing now that's different than back then? Like, were all those rules and regulations still in place?
No. In fact, for life insurance, we had a sheet 8.5 by 14, and on it had some questions. And one of the questions for the client was, you are replacing the policy. Do you want the other broker to know? I always had that circled every time before I went to see a client, because there's no way I wanted the other broker to know that it was being replaced. Now you have replacement forms and you have all sorts. So I think that was that's a biggie, because replacement, I know, is still rampant in our industry. People are still doing, but at least now it's tougher to go. It's more transparent, and hopefully a lot of people will think twice before they do it. I think the big thing that I've noticed over the years is technology. As you can tell, the way we set this up, I'm not a technology guy. I have an iPhone. I used to have a BlackBerry. I've done things. I can do emails, but I'm not a techie guy. But technology has really taken over the industry. When I first started, I had my blue binder with Crown Life, and it had all the products, all the ages, all the prices, smoker, non-smoker, all that. And I would just flip it. And ever so often, we would get a new sheet with new rates. Today, I can go to 50 companies within 3 minutes, using all the different brands out there, the CompuOffice, the CompuLife, whatever, for life insurance. And you can get all the quotes you want so fast, so easy, all the medicals, everything you want. And I think that has been a huge help to me. I was on Life Guide when I first started, once it came available. And I can tell you that I always used to tell Amy, thank you very much. The first sale of the year paid my fee for you. And I thank you very much, the late Amy. But the key to the thing is, I really believe I'm still old school, still wear a shirt and tie, still have a poof, still go out to every sale with a tie. I think that's a big change today. Very rarely do I see anything with anybody wearing that today. And I think that's a big change in people. But my clients, if I came without a shirt and tie, I'm sure that'd be the first thing they'd say. What's going on? Has business been bad? You can't afford a suit anymore, So that's part of the deal. But I think the other thing is interest rates. When I started in interest rates in 1981, 82, interest rates were 19.5%. Now we're talking, interest rates 4.5%, 5%, 6%, whatever, and everybody's freaking out. Try to sell a mortgage insurance on a guy who's paying 19.5%. And then you wonder why I sold the $12 a month premiums, because that's all they could afford.
Mm-hmm. Well, young and old in this industry always have their challenges, and you've been around for 40, 50 plus years in the business. So what are challenges that you're facing right now as an older guy in the industry, and what are you doing to change that? Because I know a lot of the young guys think that we have a one-up on some of the vets in the industry because of the use of technology. Now, I know you do it a little bit different, where you are very face-to-face with your current clients, which I still think a lot of the younger guys are. But with the new updates and technology, some rule changes in the insurance industry, just tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that Joel faces.
Well, the big challenge obviously is because of my age, and younger people are saying, well, I get this question a lot. It's really funny. I've got a pat answer for it, because I was asked, the first time I was asked that, I sort of was taken back. And they're very nice the way they do it, the young people. And they'll say, I was referred by so-and-so, and I know you did my father's insurance and my mother's, or my next door neighbor who's, in their late 60s or whatever. But I have to ask you is, down the road, you're not going to be around to service. And I said, well, I'm not planning on retiring, and hopefully I won't die so quickly. But if I do, remember, your contract is with the insurance company, not with Joel Cadesky. You write your checks to the insurance company. So the answer is, you don't really have to worry. The only worry you have is, if you die and I'm not around, who's going to get that death claim? And fortunately, I'm at a company where we can service you that. But the key to the thing is, you don't have to worry about the contract, because you're with the company, and Manulife and Sun Life are going to be around a lot longer after I am. So that really stops people. The other thing that I use with the technology part is, I tell them that I'm not as technology as they are, but guess what? I have people that I know that can get me what I want. When I started doing the e-apps, I didn't do them. I had people in the office do them for me. I would ask the questions and they would type it in. I understand, and this could be going against the grain, but I've never been one that's always been with the grain. If you read my book, I created a lot of problems for a lot of people in teaching and university and insurance. I'm not a favor of e-apps. I think e-apps are really a difficult thing, because when I'm meeting you face to face, I get to see who you are. I remember many, many, many years ago, I went to see somebody, and we're filling out the application, and he said, yeah, I'm a non-smoker. And I saw he had an ashtray. And I said, well, who's this ashtray for? Is that for your secretary? He said, no, me. But I said, you told me you're not a smoker. Oh, I only smoke once a year. I said, well, guess what? The rule is 1 cigarette a year is smoker. So I put him down as a smoker. I wouldn't have got that on an e-app. He would have put non-smoker down. He would have gone through. God forbid he died in the contestable period. There would have been a big problem. The other thing, too, is that I wrote a policy on somebody years ago that used to work with me when I was at the old place, KRG, and he asked me to be his insurance advisor. I wrote the policy, and I went to his house, and I went to see him, and I got to know his family. And then when I went to deliver the policy, he wasn't around. Turned out he was in the hospital, and I couldn't deliver the policy, and unfortunately he died. That policy never paid off, but the one that I was replacing, that I never canceled, did pay off. And again, had I not gone physically, who knows what would have happened. The other thing that I do on group insurance is I make it a point, always, this is not life insurance, this is group, I always make a point of every new prospect that I see, whether they buy from me or not, I always ask them for a tour of their process, their building, their company. I want to see what it's like. I want to see the feeling with the employees. If you tell me you've got 5 employees and I go to the back and see 45, something's wrong. Again, you won't get that over the phone. The other thing about the feeling of going to see the client for group insurance is you really, really can see the type of person. You mentioned that I'm a professional wrestling fan. You mentioned that I'm a Detroit Red Wing fan. I go to see somebody physically. I'm looking around, and on the wall, I might see something with him with a picture of somebody from the Leafs or from the Blue Jays or from anybody. I have something to talk about. I went to see a client who's now a client. He was a prospect 4 years ago. And on the wall, he had a picture of him and the Prime Minister shaking hands. I'm very good at learning about things and talking. So we talked about an hour on politics because obviously he was very big in politics. If you get the hand of the Prime Minister, you're pretty high up. And we talked about politics, and every time I see him, we're always talking about what's current in politics. But that's the thing you couldn't do if you do an e-app. You don't see anything. So I'm not a favor of e-apps. I'm a favor. Listen, this morning I went out to Oakville, which is about a 45-minute drive, saw somebody there, came back, took me over an hour because of an accident. I could have done the e-app, but I wanted to see him. And you know what? He's been a client of mine. He's bought a few policies from me. Guess what? He saw me. We did the work. He's appreciative I came. I haven't had too many people who are actual clients or prospects say, no, you can't come. You can't come. Most of them, when I ask, I give them the option. Even during COVID, I did see the odd client. Not that I was supposed to, but I did. But, it was far away, no handshaking, wearing masks, all that, which I did today too. I wore a mask today. So one thing is I always have on me my mask, always, because you don't want to know anything down the road that could harm you, and you want to show respect for the client. If the client says take it off, I'll take it off. You can't do that on an e-app, right? You can't wear a mask on an e-app.
Hey Joel, I gotta switch gears because I know you're passionate about something that we've now mentioned twice here on this podcast. So you've got something in common with a guy another book that I'm reading from a guy named Rick Rubin, and I don't know if you know of that name. He's a famous music producer. He's he's probably about 60 years old. He's produced acts from Johnny Cash, Dixie Chicks, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and hip hop and everything. Anyways, he's a really interesting character, and he's in California. And one of his pastimes, of which he watches like 12 hours a week, is professional wrestling. And I find it really funny today that I was thinking about him and professional wrestling and how much I used to watch it when I was a kid. And then Nathan introed you with that, and I'm like, okay, we've got to talk about this, because if someone's listening and they like professional wrestling, well, let's hear it. So my question to you is, how long have you been watching it, and why do you love it so much?
Well, if you watch my LinkedIn post, I've been doing a lot of analogies with wrestling, because I think wrestlers, I'll go back to your question about when I was young, but I just want to tell you why I like it so much. I think they are the best salesmen in the world. There's nobody can sell better. Everybody thinks the guy is hurt. Everybody thinks, wrestling isn't fixed. What it is preset. So we know that Hulk Hogan, when he was there, he was going to win at the 8-minute mark. They knew, we didn't.
Right.
But as far as getting hurt, look at all the wrestlers that have died so young, right? Eddie Guerrero. I can just go through a list of them. We just had the Genius last week, 68 years of age. Lanny Poffo died. Randy Savage died of a heart attack driving his car in Florida. He's in his 50s. It's a tough life, but they are really good. So go back to why I liked it. I was born and raised in Owen Sound, and the Owen Sound Arena was about 10 minutes walk from my house, and we used to have wrestling matches there all the time. What happened was the wrestlers used to drive in from Toronto, and they used to go to the parking lot, get out and go in and do their wrestling, get back. Whipper Billy Watson, Pat Flanagan, Tex McKenzie, I can go Dick Hutton, Hans Schmidt, Sweet Daddy Siki, who I talk about in my book. I met Sweet Daddy Siki when I was at KRG, and we had the most phenomenal afternoon of discussing wrestling. No insurance, just complete wrestling. And I found out, which I never knew, Sweet Daddy Siki was one of the trainers in his early career of Randy Savage.
Oh, wow.
Never knew.
Nice.
So when I was 10 years old, I went to my matches. But I used to go into the parking lot. Talk about salesmanship when I was young, didn't know it. And the wrestlers would get out of the car, and I would say to them, "Can I carry your bag in, sir?" And they would say, "Sure." And I would go in with them, 10 years old. And when I walked in, they walked in free, and they would always say, "This guy's with me." And I would go into the dressing room, put the bag down, open it up for them, and then I would leave, and he gave me the ticket, and I would go upstairs and get freebies. And I used to do that. And Whipper Watson, Unfortunately, when my mother died, we cleaned out her house. And one of the pictures that I never kept that I should have was a picture of me when I was about 11 or 12 with Whipper Billy Watson. And that would have been a keepsake. But I met a lot of wrestlers. So I liked it from there. And then as I got older, I just liked the showmanship. I liked the sellability. I liked the athleticism. But I really, really liked the promos. In fact, I use some of the promo things when I meet clients, right? I use, I always tell clients, not always, but mostly I tell people, and a lot of them who are watching this, if they do, will know, I tell them I'm the Roddy Piper of insurance, right? Because just when you think you have the answer, I'm changing the question. And I tell them I'm the Bret Hart of insurance because I'm the best there is of insurance. I'm the best there was, and I'll always be the best. And then I go to, when you talk about sales, I talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin. When you go slow, go slower. And that's a great tip that I've given to people in the insurance industry who are in sales or when you talk to clients, go slower, not fast. Don't rush it. Don't rush it. So, you know what? I use that. So wrestling to me, and the funny part is when you ask me what books have I read in the last couple of years, they're all biographies of wrestlers. John Moxley. I just read a 400-page book biography on the original sheet. 400 pages on the original sheet. I've read Ric Flair's, Dusty Rhodes. I mean, you name it. Any biography that's out there. I'm actually reading, which is really weird. If anybody's watching this now and knows wrestling, I'm actually reading the biography of the Young Bucks. I mean, they're younger than you guys. But yet they wrote a book, and I'm reading it because nice. I love biographies of wrestling.
That's such a unique passion, but I find it's interesting because although we know what the outcome is, it can keep you on the edge. Right, and it can keep you on the edge of your seat, and it's I don't know, sort of a metaphor for life to some degree.
Well, they sell so great because when it's all. I'll give you an example. Last week on AEW, Billy Gunn's two boys won the championship, and Billy Gunn was the manager of the people that he beat. They were just on, oh, by the way, every morning, if I'm in the car between 9 and 12, on channel 156 in Sirius, they have a show called Busted Open. It's only for wrestling. And I listened this morning, they interviewed the two sons of Billy Gunn, but they were talking about it last week, and I had watched it on TV because I always tape it. It's on TSN. And, I mean, everybody knows that they're not hating their father. But yet everybody was booing him that night. They booed them like crazy. They even mentioned this morning, best part of the whole evening wasn't winning the championship. It was going back to the dressing room and getting people yelling at them and screaming at them and booing them and that. That's what gets people going. It really is. You don't see that with hockey. You don't see that with basketball. You don't see that at the Super Bowl game. And the other thing is the promos. Roddy Piper's promos, Ric Flair's promos. Oh my God, they were. You know what? But I learned from them because if you talk to people like they talk, you get them excited. They really want to see what you're doing.
Love it.
Ric Flair, maybe one of the, or not the best wrestler ever, but boy, his promos, go on YouTube and watch his promo. Woo!
Yeah, well, I'm sure we could keep talking about wrestling forever. I know
we'll get back to insurance, but since you asked, I got to go.
We're getting close to time here, but I had a question that I know Nick really likes to ask it, and I want to ask you, Joel. So what's a question that you wish people asked you more?
What question do people ask me more?
What question would you like people to ask you more?
I'd like them to ask me more, not about my insurance. I'd like them to ask me more about my family because I try to put that in there. I mean, I've been married 50 years. I've got two children, and both of them, one's got an MD, the other's got a PhD. I talk about my kids as much as I can. I'd like people more to ask. I ask them about theirs. They never ask me about mine. A lot of them know about it because I volunteer it. But I think I'd like people to know more about my family and my wife. I mean, 50 years marriage today, you know.
Congrats.
Yeah, it is. But it went fast, too. I still remember the wedding. But I think that's the question that I think I would like people more to ask. I don't get that a lot. People just want to know how long you've been in the business. What can you do for me? They don't want to get to know me. But eventually they do. because a lot of my clients know about my book. A lot of clients know about my kids, but I basically bring it out. Very rarely does anybody ask me, "Oh, can you tell me about your family?" I don't get that. And I think it's, if you're going to have a relationship with a client, it's got to be a personal relationship. It can't just be 100% business. So I know about you, Mr. Client. I know about your kids and your grandkids, and I know your history and how you started the business. But you never asked me about me. That's one of the reasons I wrote the book. And a lot of my clients have bought the book. So now they understand it, and they phone me and they've said to me, "Wow, I never knew that about you." My answer was, "You never asked."
That's awesome.
You can't get that from a robo-advisor, Joel. You're one of the pioneers in the industry. So although we are definitely newer to the business, or I've been around for quite a while now, but either way, it's thank you for paving the way. You teach us that, hard work and persistence is really the key to this business, regardless of us using technology or not. I think it needs to be embraced, but you're highlighting what I hear here is continuing the human element is so important to what we do, building those relationships with our clients, having them, when you can pick up the phone and as you say, you build a relationship and they're asking you, "How's your wife? How's your kids?" And it's like, less about the product, but you know for a fact that you've had the guts to pick up the phone and do what you need to do to protect Canadians for 40 years. And congratulations to do that, because a lot of people don't. They give up, they get scared, they worry about it, their hand gets too cold, their gorilla's too heavy to lift up and reach out to people. But, you're on the other end of a quite an impressive career of, doing the nasties, doing what you need to do, but to protect Canadians. And that's incredible. And we'll follow your lead on that. Really appreciate you reaching out to touch base and get on the podcast here and share your story. So Joel, where can people find you if they want to find out more or read your book?
The book is, you can get it off Amazon, Indigo. Friesen Press is out of Victoria, is the publisher, and it's called Retired, Rewired, Not Expired. In actuality, if you look at the book, there's an arrow through the retire, which says no, but we couldn't do the arrow, so I just tell everybody it's Retired, Rewired. Just put in my name, go to Amazon, put in my name, you'll see the book, and read the book, and comment whatever way you want. Call me. It's easy to find me. Go to Google or go to what you guys, and look at the website. You'll find me. I'm very transparent. I'm easy to find. I let people phone me all the time. I just want to say one more thing, Nick. You brought up a really good point. One of the things about relationships that I think today has been missing, I put in my book, every one of my death claims, critical illness claims, disability claims, I have been there to give that check. Now, today I know it's being e-transferred, but I was there to make sure before the check was e-transferred, I was involved. Too many times I've heard of stories, and I picked up clients because of it, where somebody passes away, has a disability, and nobody is there who sold it. Nobody will help them. Here's the 1-800 number. And I really believe strongly, very strongly, that as good as you think your broker is, there's only one time that you're going to find out how good it is, but it's always going to be too late, is when there's a major claim, like a death claim. Or on your group plan, you have an out-of-Canada coverage plan. I got 2 phone calls today myself from 2 people, one in Hawaii and one in Florida, stating, I got a problem, how to help me.
Yeah.
So this, I think, is really important. I just wanted to finish with that we didn't get into that, but the end result is my job isn't done with you. And I tell clients, my job isn't done with you until I either have the check delivered or I'm not around and somebody else makes sure. And that's important. That is so important. That is our job. That is our job. Get that check to them. And I have another line that I use. I don't want to ever have an excuse when I meet you in the hospital. I want to have that check ready.
You got it. And to any advisor who's new in the industry and you're going home and talking to your wife with your tail between your legs, wondering if you're going to keep it up, when you deliver your first check, be it e-transfer or however that happens, you'll realize the power of what you do, and it'll keep you hooked. It did for me. I remember it was $25,000 was my first death benefit I paid to a widow, and doesn't sound like a lot, but it changed your life, and it lets you know, what's important and why we're doing what we're doing.
In my book, I do talk about some of the claims that I did and how I did it. And one of them was a $10,000. To this day, it's still one of my quote unquote best claims I ever did because of the reaction and what it did. And I also talk about the time I drove in a snowstorm 60 miles to physically give the beneficiary her check and then drive back home to Toronto another 60 miles in a snowstorm. And that's all in the book. And that's the kind of things that, going back to what you asked some time ago, that's what's missing, I think, today. I don't know of how many new advisors out there would do that. They would just say, oh, here's the check, you got it emailed, whatever, not making sure that they would have done it. And the worst part about it is our clients, our people that are insured are losing out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Joel. I know it's been a pleasure to have you. We're pretty much at time here now, and
thank you.
I'll be sure to throw your information in when we post this podcast in the upcoming weeks. So, thank you again for everyone listening. Episode 23 of the Interesting People You Meet. Thanks again, Joel.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
See ya.
Thank you very much.